Okay. So can I first have you clarify something for me?
Sure.
So is the Fort Knox and then the shots fired, are they related? Or are they two separate incidents?
No, we believe they're related.
Related, same person, same suspect?
We think so, yes.
Okay, so is it safe to say then there's three gun-related incidents within the last month that have happened?
Here's part of the education piece, okay? Those aren't shootings, they're shots fired. So shootings means somebody was hit. Shots fired are shots fired with either nothing hit or a building or a car struck. And I can talk about that, but we're tracking that in greater detail than the department was previously so that we can discern the difference. I think that's important for people to understand, because someone fires off a gun and someone's on TV or even in the department, they get it messed up. Oh, we're at a shooting. Yeah, you're not at a shooting, no one shot. Someone fired a gun, which is not good, but there's a lot of reasons why that happens versus why people get shot. And sometimes it's aimed, but the rest of them are either tomfoolery or there's some kind of retribution or some of these are accidental, where people are handling guns and then fire them off. So that's why there's a difference in how we describe it.
Okay.
So this incident was a shots fired incident.
And Space Aliens is a shots fired.
Yeah.
And then Africa is a shooting.
That is actually a homicide.
Yes.
And the cause of the homicide was gunfire. But just like Brittany Paulson, that's a homicide, blunt force trauma, strangulation, right? So shootings then are obviously someone shot, not fatally. If it's fatal, it's a homicide.
Okay.
So as we track our data and explain where we're at, you'll see that a little more clearly. But previously, shootings and shots fired would count under the larger category of aggravated assault, and we have like 400 of those. So for people to figure out of 400 aggravated assaults, where are these shootings and shots fired, which I think are probably of most concern to them, it wasn't broken down before, so it's hard for us to compare. But we're establishing this year baseline. We've been tracking it the whole year. So I mean we're very well versed on what's happened this year. It's hard to kind of compare to last year, other than maybe what people kind of feel about what's happening. But it's last year we had 7 homicides, so this halfway through the year we have 2. I don't know where we were halfway through because again, we just weren't tracking it that way.
Right. Is it fair to call these things then gun-related?
Yeah, gun-related incidents, sure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 3 unsolved so far gun-related incidents.
Well, tell me about Space Aliens.
Shots fired.
Okay. Yeah, so we have so far this year 23 shots fired incidents. 10 of them are cleared by arrest. So 43% of those incidents we've arrested somebody. 4 of those incidents were accidental, meaning the person accidentally fired and either part of a building was struck, in which there's still potential negligent criminal culpability, but it's not like they were trying to hit somebody. So again, take 4 out of 23, you're down to 19, in which either we know there was some kind of specific criminal intent, or because we haven't made an arrest, we don't know what the situation was. Just contextually,
Okay. So,
But yeah, they're gun related, and those 3 are currently unsolved. But to put context for the year, 43% of those are cleared. 60% of our shootings are cleared. 3 out of 5 we've made arrests.
Yeah, that's good stats.
Yeah.
And obviously these aren't going cold anytime soon or anything like that.
No, we're actively working on all of these cases, so investigators are pretty busy.
What goes on in an investigation like this? I mean, obviously grabbing camera footage if you can, but what are the roadblocks that come in investigations like these?
Well, I mean, I think each investigation has its individual challenges. In a lot of these situations, from a shooting perspective, there's usually a victim to interview, there's witnesses, there's evidence to collect, and that can consist of a lot of things, from ballistics to video to a number of other crime lab related types of things, DNA, fingerprints, etc. So there's a lot to work with in those situations, as compared oftentimes to a shots fired call, where our officers get sent to the area. Someone heard shots or saw someone firing, similar to the situation that happened on Robert Street an evening ago. And we collect, we can see that shots were fired, there's bullet casings there, we've got a witness and a victim, and we have a description. And so that's extremely helpful to us. Not all shots fired calls are like that. Sometimes we get there and all there is some casings, or we have a house or a vehicle or something struck by gunfire. And so we don't know without other information, what the true motivation was. Obviously, that's very dangerous. But to discern between, we investigate it as a crime, but at the end, once we identify who was involved, potentially it's not criminal in nature. Some of these accidental ones obviously are different. Someone mishandling a firearm. We've had 4 of those incidents where folks have fired off guns due to their own negligence or mishandling.
Mm-hmm. For these cases, at this point, do you think any of the 3 gun-related incidents, Africa, Space Aliens, and Robert Street, are any of them at this point seeming to be connected?
Well, our investigators are working on all those. The Africa Club homicide is its own investigation. So I wouldn't comment on that at all. It's an active homicide investigation. But the incident at Fort Knox where a gun was pointed, which is a terrorizing offense, and the subsequent shots fired in that same area, we believe would be the same suspect involved, and we're actively working on that case.
For the most part, when these incidents happen, I know that you're talking about sometimes it was done accidentally, but for the most part, when these types of crimes happen, are they done to people who are known to one another, or is this a random violence?
Oftentimes, there's not a lot of random violence. We don't have a lot of random victims. Ms. Paulson is certainly an exception to that rule, and so that can happen. That's a very random, tragic, and violent attack. Most often, a lot of these incidents are the people involved on both sides of the coin are known to each other. They have either some kind of ongoing dispute or some kind of ongoing criminal activity that brings this violence to a head. We also have a lot of domestic violence that relates to this kind of situation. So by and large, people know each other in these incidents, or they're associated with, let's say, a house that gets shot. You can go to the West Fargo incidents, and we know that those were connected, and that house getting shot up was related to an earlier dispute. And so I think that's a common theme that you see in a lot of gun violence, not just here, but in other cities.
Mm-hmm. Something that whenever something happens, whether it's in Fargo, it's in Moorhead, it's in West Fargo, the concern from the community and the comments from the community are always, Fargo is turning into little Chicago, turning into little Detroit. You're coming from Milwaukee, coming from a big city who sees a lot of crime. What's your response to that, and is there any sort of comfort you can give to the community when it comes to the crime?
Sure. Fargo is far and away a safer city than any of those other cities, and even for cities of its size, a very safe city. Certainly the violent crime that's going on, especially the gun crime, is unacceptable. I think it's unacceptable to both the police department and the community. And we've had a lot of cooperative efforts on both sides to identify who those persons are. There's really a small percentage of individuals in our community who are responsible for these crimes. So our ability to get information, to hone in on who those people are, and to make the arrest and bring them before the criminal justice system is extremely important, and I think we're doing very well, and we're going to continue to improve in that area. Compared to other cities, here again, far and above other cities from the perspective of, if you look at the cities that have the most violence, that are most out of control, they are in situations where there has been a lot of discussion about defunding, reprogramming, reimagining, whatever word you want to attach to it, their police, which by its very nature causes extreme fear in the community, because when that happens, as you can see in Chicago, Seattle, Minneapolis, you not only lose your police force, because they're not going to stay and work in an environment for which they don't think they have a career, or they're under undue scrutiny. The level of violence, now the criminals know that no one's around, or there's less of them, and it perpetuates more violence. I mean, criminals will continue to do what they do until they get caught, and if they feel like they're going to get away with it, why would they stop? And they will also be magnetized to those areas in which they feel safe to commit their crimes. So by virtue of those losses and that philosophy, in my opinion, that causes community safety to be put in jeopardy. Here in Fargo, we have a very supportive commission and mayor who have not gone down that road, recognize the importance of our public safety professionals, and although they expect accountability, they expect operational efficiency and response, and we are working to improve in all of those areas. So I think that combination and working with our community at all levels, even in some instances community members who may have been adverse to us in the past, but the ability to bring them in as partners, create that relationship and understanding, also creates greater public safety. I know this from my own experience, but again, I think you could look nationally at other cities from the same vein.
Going back to all three incidents, do you have any uncooperative subjects who are making solving your cases more difficult?
Not really. I mean, in some instances, people may be reluctant to talk to the police for a variety of reasons. Oftentimes victims in some locations will say, well, I don't, if I give you this information, I'm concerned about my personal safety because there could be retaliation. Well, that's actually a counterintuitive thought, because if you know who's involved, especially in a gun crime, and you don't work with the police to help us get that person out of your neighborhood, you could very well be the next victim, because these people are not necessarily worried about who may be in the way of their gunfire as they go after a particular target. So I think it's less safe for people to think, well, I'll just hold on to this because if I don't say anything, I'm safer. I don't think that's true at all.
Mm-hmm. For the Robert Street case that happened yesterday, was that a case of like a domestic that was happening? Like, my question is, do we have to worry about this person possibly doing this again?
Well, again, it's an active investigation, although I think we can say that the victim did not know the suspect. So what exactly transpired that led up to that, and obviously the connection to the terrorizing that occurred prior to that. So that's more of a not related person-to-person incident. But we do have a lot of excellent information on that case, and I'm pretty confident they'll identify who's involved.
Soon. Is it just one person?
Well, I don't know if it'll be soon,
okay,
because there's a lot of work that goes into these cases, but I am confident they will identify the perpetrator.
One perpetrator you're looking for? I know you're saying occupant.
We're looking for one at this point, yes.
Okay. You mentioned something a little bit ago about it's a few people who do all of these crimes. Is that fair to say for Fargo? It's a small number of people. Just people, when you see all the headlines, and I get that, I'm part of the headlines. So when you see all the headlines and it seems like crime after crime after crime, it seems like you got a lot of criminals in town, but it's a small number when you take a look back. Right.
So again, attention, perception, cognition. If that's all we see on the news, we do get that perception, and that obviously is your job to report that. However, when you look at it, and there's a problem-oriented policing formula to this, 10% of your victims account for 40% of victimizations. We know that we have persons who are constantly victimized. You can look at domestic violence, you can look at children, things of that nature. 20% of our suspects account for 50% of our crime. So the ability to identify who the 20% of the overall suspect picture is and hone in on that equates to 50%, formula-wise reduction. 30% of your locations in any city account for 60% of your crime venues, and I think you would look at where do we see a lot of crime occurring. For whatever reason, historically and otherwise, there are certain neighborhoods that have more repetitive or more persistent crime issues, and so focusing on 20% of those suspects, focusing on particular locations, and not just from an enforcement perspective. We're taking a dual approach to community engagement at the same time. So this is also part of our community policing philosophy and a new approach on what we're doing as well. So we don't just go in to an area and go, there's a lot of crime here, we're going to start stopping everyone. We go in looking for particular individuals who we know to be involved or associated, and at the same time we have the other side of the department, community engagement pieces in which we are networking with the people that are living there who don't want to be continual crime victims and trying to build that trust and garner those relationships and therefore get more information to help make their neighborhood safer.
Absolutely. This is unrelated to the other three, but it will come back. So Mr. Havisto, in a jail interview with our station, said that drugs played a part in what ended up occurring 5 times. Do you think drugs has a lot to do with the crime that we're seeing in the city of Fargo?
Certain crimes, perhaps. I don't know if we've been able to show that from a data perspective. I think anecdotally we would associate a lot of property crimes with drugs, burglaries, and thefts, and we do have a lot of burglaries in our city. That's something that we need to delve into more. And there is a large increase in overdoses, not just here in Fargo, but nationally. So there is an increase, I think, in narcotics trafficking. Which I'm very happy that we were able to pass that added enhancer for your traffickers that cause a fatal overdose. After that goes into effect, will be another tool for us. But also nationally, and if you look at the situation at the border, I mean, when the border was not as open as it is now, a lot of drugs were coming into our country. We know already from our federal partners that that number has gone up exponentially, especially the perpetuation of fentanyl and its influx into what someone might think is actually a prescription pill. So users thinking they're getting some kind of Oxycontin pill that's pharmaceutical in nature are getting a fatal dose of fentanyl, and we're seeing the amount of overdoses and the amount of fatal overdoses increase dramatically. We had a total of 91 overdoses with 18 fatals in 2020. Through May of this year, we had a total of 67 with 13 fatals. So I mean, it's easy math. We are, again, far and above going to exceed last year, which was a huge increase from the year before. So drugs and narcotics play a part in not just crime, but other social issues.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you want to add when it comes to the 3 gun-related incidents? I'm not going to call them shootings now.
Yes, thank you. No, I think the community, just to realize that we recognize the importance of identifying who these people are. We are working very hard in all of these cases. I'm very confident in the competence of our personnel to solve these crimes, with the caveat that we need community cooperation and support too. I mean, I'm sure right now that there's someone that knows who this person is, just by virtue of the description and all the information. And it's a question of, will they come forward and work with us so that we can prevent this individual from either hurting himself or hurting someone else. Because again, if we can reduce or eliminate repeat victimization, that's big for our community. If someone's sitting on information and this person goes and does something else, I mean, that's not good.
Last question. Is there ever a lack of video evidence that you guys frustratingly run into? Like, do you not have a lot of video evidence at any time, or people have very poor video quality? Is that something that you guys are trying to work on in the community, or is that not really something you can do anything about?
Well, a lot of times it's a business decision, and businesses have a wide variety of video, updated video type of capabilities. And so I think as a business owner, I guess we would encourage them to update their systems so that they're getting the best video quality possible. That also helps them in the event of internal issues that they might have. But it helps us a lot when a crime occurs. We've talked about this in terms of some of our liquor establishments. I've talked to the Commissioner of Liquor Control Board about even thinking perhaps about requiring certain video in certain liquor establishments for both the internal and external benefits. So I mean, that's an ongoing conversation, and it depends on where we are and what business we're in, but the quality can differ widely.
Perfect. Okay, anything else?
No, I think we're good.
Thanks.
Good.